Budget Collecting in another one of our indie shows. Tonight we are once again talking a little 100 Bullets, and I got my 100 Bullets crew with me. I got my man John's Comics with Kids. What's up, John? How are you?
I'm feeling a little sad tonight. A little sad.
Yeah, we got things to say about this.
I know. I've been anxiously awaiting this discussion.
Yeah, and we got my man Daymers. Adam, what is happening, sir?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm good. Despite the fact that I almost threw the book away. When we got to the scene John just referenced. Yeah. So we are talking 100 Bullets. We are closing in on the end. We got volumes 11 and 12 here. I even forgot what the name of the volumes are off the top of my head.
Once Upon a Crime.
Once Upon a Crime and Dirty. And Dirty,
yep.
Yes. So volumes 11 and 12. We are continuing the story of 100 Bullets. We seem to be bringing things to... There was still a little bit of side stuff, but mostly we're bringing it all together here in these two volumes as we move toward the end game. So, Adam, what did you think of these two volumes, and where are the setup here as we approach the end?
Yeah, things are starting to happen, really starting to fall now. The people and, just the dominoes, or however you want to word it. A lot of stuff starting to happen. I liked it a little bit better than the past two volumes, but still doesn't come back up to that peak of the 3 volumes before that.
John, what about you? What do you think of these two volumes as they kind of set up the end game here? Is really what we're doing here. Oh.
No, I mean, I agree with Adam. I think that these are definitely... Am I slowing up again?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Can you hear me okay, at least? Oh, I mean, I agree with Adam that we have definitely moved into the section that can be frustrating in a sense that it's not at the same level that we had in volumes 7 and 8, and I think there's parts of it that I really love, and there's parts of it that I really after several readings had to kind of emotionally, psychologically work through, but I'm excited to talk about them.
Yeah. I would say for me, I would agree. This is still this is not obviously the peak of the story. We got kind of the, that middle section there that we talked about when we first meet with Wiley and with Victor. And I feel like that was some of the highlights here. We're moving in. We spent some time with some characters that not all of these Minutemen are made equal in terms of their entrance to me. And so, we're moving toward the end game. I do think I'm glad it's starting to pull it together. There's still a lot that's not, that's left out there to pull together with one volume to go. I would say I am very nervous about whether or not they stick the landing on this. I will say that after because I feel like there's a lot left to figure out, but I also feel like I know exactly where it's going to a certain degree. So we will see, but that's a discussion for at the end. We pick up. We basically got our different crews here. We got Lono's crew, we got Graves' crew, and we got Wiley and Dizzy. We got 3 separate groups here moving through the game, not counting the trust, all separate from the trust itself. That's basically kind of tearing itself apart as we're going through this volume. So what did you think of just the dynamics here? Is we've basically got Team Graves, which is Cole and Remy, and we got Team Lono, which is Jack and Victor and Loop, and obviously then we got Wiley and Dizzy and Branch and Benito hanging out together. What did you think of the dynamics of these different groups, John?
I mean, I think they fit well where they are for the most part. There's a couple of loose cannons that could easily shift between teams here a little bit, but you look at the Stone Cold Graves killers that are like just, these guys are cool as ice, basically. You look at the crew that is running with Lono, and they're all kind of loose cannons. They're all just kind of, you don't know quite what they're going to do, except we'll get to Victor in a second.
Yeah.
And then you've got Wiley's group, who is playing catch up. They all feel like they're like 3 steps behind the game, and Wiley is finally coming to some place where he feels like, I think I understand this whole thing now. Like, I think I get it. And obviously Branch doesn't get it. Benita doesn't get it. Dizzy's just like, I don't know what's happening right now. I don't even know my own self anymore.
Yeah.
But then there's Victor. I think Victor's the interesting piece that is not, he's not where he's acting, at least, like he's not where he's supposed to be. And he doesn't know how to fix this. And he doesn't know how to like play his part.
For sure. What about you, Adam? What did you think of the dynamics of these 3 different groups we get here kind of at the beginning of this volume?
So, it's kind of interesting to me, how they had, and I hadn't really thought of how well they were grouped up, like John was just saying, until he was saying that. And then, it sort of dawned on me that, yeah, they were grouped up like that. And I just found it interesting how they some cases quickly they changed, this progresses through these 2 volumes into the group shifting. Just totally,
Yeah. Basically what we see is the story arc here is everyone has learned that Wiley and Dizzy are hiding out in Mexico, and both Lono's group is headed for revenge for Shepard, as at least appears to be what they're claiming, as they're headed down there to kill Dizzy for revenge for Shepard. Meanwhile, Graves is headed to recruit Wiley. He's trying to get like more up his team going on here. Hey, Big O, what's going on, sir? Christina, welcome. Glad to see you both. And we do get like the one group, like I said, it's very much Cole, Remy, and Graves are very much, mission, let's go. And then we got the Wild Bunch that Victor does not seem to fit in with very well here, of Lono and Jack, and then poor Loop, who's just the entertainment, the punching bag. I don't know what his role is.
He's the rookie, if you want to do a sports metaphor.
Yeah. I mean,
he's going through hazing right now, right? The old hats are basically just, they're having fun with him. They're just messing with him. And I think there's a lot of like mind games happening, and he gets the crap assignments, and he's carrying the luggage. He's got that like rookie position.
Yeah. What did you? Yes, Croatoa, I think, is correct. What's going on? Adam, what did you think of that dynamic, at least of that particular group of Lono, Jack, Victor, and Loop?
Yeah. I mean, it would be very hectic, to say the least.
Yeah.
And, I've found Loop's story kind of interesting, especially whenever they were at the pool and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And, trying to find his, place and, trying to make something of himself somewhat, to show that he's not, not just a, totally green rookie, that he is, that he can do the job, and, failing.
Yeah, he's failing miserably at trying to, find his spot in the group. Yeah, I thought that was a very the dynamic there is very interesting, because Victor clearly is the odd one in that group that does not seem to fit. Like, that why he's with them doesn't really seem to work, but we will see that. The other thing we get is we see a little bit of a transformed Wiley Times here, like compared to what we've seen in the previous books. Wiley has clearly, like John mentioned before, come to some conclusions, has started to figure some things out while he's been sitting in the desert thinking about everything that's happened. And he seems much more with it, much more serious. Like when the guys come to that he's been that's been kind of hiding him or whatever and supplying him. They come to kill him and turn the corner. Wiley is very no nonsense about the whole thing. What did you think of the transformation we see with Wiley here, Adam, in this volume a little bit?
He's just almost as amazing at this as he was as the Devil May Care. The whatever happens. And I guess to a certain extent he still is that way, but he's very more you don't feel like he's just stumbling through everything. You get a feeling that he knows exactly, to a certain extent, knows exactly what he thinks is going on.
Yeah. What about you, John? What did you think of this version of Wiley here? Because we've gotten the things that Wiley was like referred to as the leader and like maybe the baddest,
the point man,
and maybe the baddest man of the group, really. And like we hadn't seen that Wiley because Wiley's just been like, I don't give a fuck. Like,
yeah.
So what did you think about this? Is he starting to take on that persona again?
Yeah, I mean, as a reader, I think the first time through, I was so enthusiastic to see this character who's been, dragging his feet for 70 issues, as much as we've seen him. And then now he's finally like getting into the, what do you want to call it? A game, getting into it. He's actually like participating, but the frustration for me as the reader, the having read it a few times, is knowing the result. The character has come a long ways, and certainly waking up, the code word is a big part of that. But I think also him becoming more maybe aware of the roles that Shepherd and Graves have been playing and forcing them to play, and how that is impacting his decision making now. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly like taking a step forward in terms of like, okay, we're starting to see like the man that he was and why Graves has so much faith in him. And interspersed in this, as we're heading toward this basically coming together of these three groups, as we're getting flashbacks to the scene on the dock. And what we still don't know exactly, even at this stage, exactly what went down, but now we see everybody's role. We see that they're basically, that Lono was not there on purpose, like, which is why he did not lose his memory or whatever. But although we still haven't seen them like lose their memory, but they're all basically on board with what's happening here. Dragging somebody down to burn, like that, maybe not completely on board, but they're all like, we're getting more and more of that scene. What did you think of how much we've gotten so far with this, John, in terms of the flashback?
I feel like it's one of those things across all the issues that we've read and will continue to read, that they're going out of their way not to just spoon feed it to you, right? You have to kind of remember little pieces. This is how Jack remembered it. This is how Wiley remembers it. This is how Cole remembered it, right? And we're piecing together how each of them fit into this machine. And for Wiley, he's central, right? With what happened to Rose and what he had to do there, and we've seen big chunks of that, right? Mm-hmm. And he was the one questioning, is this the right move? Are we really doing this? Like, is this, are we just blindly following Graves on this? Is this what we really want to do with ourselves here? And so I think that fits nicely into this volume, where you see him in a role of trying to like right the ship in some way,
So what about you, Adam? What did you think of the flashback here that we get?
It's nice that we're starting to get more and more of it, but I'm still, curious who that person is.
Yeah,
and that's the big thing you should be asking. Yeah, for sure.
Who that person is and what they're trying to accomplish. Like, they still didn't really clear what this is going to accomplish for them. Like, in terms of why taking this person out in the way that they're doing it.
Or if they even do.
Well, it appears like we see here Wiley drops the match. So, so it's not to say that they couldn't take him out. Like, they couldn't still save the guy, but it seems like it's headed one direction. when he I mean, the match is like an inch from the gasoline when we leave this particular scene. But that basically leads to, we see Victor separates from his group and goes and finds Wiley's group on his own. He ditches the other boys to go talk to Wiley, but seems to be playing like Wiley trusts him enough that he leaves him with everybody to go for his rendezvous with Graves. But Victor is playing his own game. So what do we think about what Victor's doing here? Like, where is Victor at before we get to the Wiley part? Where's Victor at on this in your minds? Because I'm not, even as we get through the rest of this volume, not sure exactly which side Victor is playing here in terms of what he's going on. So what did you think of Victor here, Adam?
Yeah, he keeps his motives pretty close to his vest. It's hard to figure out exactly what who he's looking out for. If he's with Graves, if he's on his own, if he is with Lono, where his core beliefs, actually lay with those.
Yeah. Victor is clearly the most, in terms of, outside of Graves, maybe the person whose motives are the most unclear in terms of what really is motivating them in terms of the story for me. What about you, John? What did you think of Victor here?
He's my second or maybe third favorite Minuteman. It's always going to be Wiley, and then I'm a big Cole and Victor fan, and I can't really pick who gets second place. They both, I guess, can tie. I like Victor because to your point, he definitely doesn't let anybody in on what he's thinking, but you can always tell that he's not on the up and up. He's always got another card to play that you might not expect him to play. And he sees the game, I think, more clearly than anybody outside of Shepard and Graves. Like he's the guy who seems to see the bigger picture better than anybody else. And he's perfectly fine being patient in where he fits in and waiting for his opportunity. You can tell he's kind of miserable with Lono's crew.
Yeah.
But he's with them for a purpose, and he's going to ride that out and then move on to what's better his lot and his situation,
Yeah. For sure. All right. So this brings us to the scene in this volume, at least for me. So Wiley goes to visit with Graves, but he was supposed to bring Dizzy. He does not. And instead he wants to get Cole, because he knew Graves would send Cole ahead. He wants to talk to Cole, but Remy is there. And we see that Wiley actually finally sees the game. He appears to have seen the game and has an idea of what Graves and them are trying to do. But before he can relate it to Cole, Remy is an idiot. So what did you think of the end of Wiley Times? Were you as pissed as I was? John, I'll let you go first.
I was furious the first time I read this. I was like, are you shitting me? I worked so long seeing this character come to a place that I was like, I'm excited what he can do. And it felt so casual.
Diplomatic.
Yeah. And it's every time I reread it, I'm hesitant to get to this point because I've got to decide, has it improved in any, has this plot line or, this moment improved in any way? And I will say every time I read it, I like it more, but that's a low bar because it started off very frustrating and disappointing that it was cut so short.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? What'd you think?
Yeah. Pretty much the exact same thing. He's just starting to, come into himself and, really starting to fire on all cylinders and seems to really know what's going on. And then just Remy just screws up.
Well,
Does he?
Well, that's fair enough.
Because if you look at the
And, you know,
panels, it's
Brothers-
it's subjective, right?
Yeah. And then also, one of my first thoughts is, would Wiley, I mean, would Wiley really have let that happen? Or was he ready to go meet Rose? I don't think so. But, there.
Yeah, I don't think he does this on purpose. I do think he expected to be talking to Cole and not necessarily Remy. And I think he's having I think he's having a conversation with Cole and Remy's just there. And I don't think he's really even paying attention to him. The only reason I think he gets the drop on him is like he's not. I don't think Wiley, if you see the panel where he's looking and he's talking to Cole, to me, I don't think no, I think he's surprised that when this happens, and this was not what he was expecting, which is I think the only way Remy can, as Victor kind of demonstrates later, the only way Remy's going to do it is if Wiley was completely surprised. And here's my frustration, but I also where I get that it's probably serving the story that they're trying to tell is I feel like Wiley, and this is where I said earlier that I feel like I know where it's headed now, is I feel like we're headed toward one ending, which I'll discuss at the end of this volume, what I expect from the last thing. And I feel like Wiley was the only route to a different ending.
Hmm.
And because I think the conversation with Cole potentially puts it on a different path than the path it's on. And I'll just say right now, the path I think it's on is that everybody dies. Everybody. And I think that's where we're headed. And I think Wiley was maybe the only route that doesn't happen. And for me, that was the frustration. I was okay, I get, but I also get why they had to do it when they do it. But I wanted more Wiley. I want more Wiley times. For me, it's not even the gap between him and the next most interesting, and it is Victor, is pretty wide. So for me, but that's just my thoughts. Any thoughts on that from me saying that, John? Because you shook your head in terms of Wiley.
No, I think that's a fairly astute observation, and insofar as the line that they repeat a couple of times in here is that he had too much heart for this, right? That Wiley, of course, gets shot in his heart, but he had too much heart for this game. And I think to your point, if he was the only way for this to end happy, have a happy ending,
right?
Then the goal in this story is to not have a happy ending, then he's got to go. Yeah. You could argue that that's the clear point to his passing, and structurally, thematically, if the point is to have this, like we've had with the briefcases kind of all along, that there's no way to win, right? There's no way to get the briefcase, and use it the right way, whether that's to sit on it or actually go and kill the person or whatever. There seems to be no right way to use the briefcase. Everybody's screwed, right? Yeah. So if that's the overarching theme in some way, and Wiley's existence offers hope, he got to go.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? What do you think of that thought?
I can see that, and I kind of agree with you. I think everything's going to end on with everyone dead. That's my
yeah. I mean,
and so that is I could definitely see where he would be the only one that'd be able to steer everyone away from that.
Yeah. That's just the impression I got when we got to here, and then as I read the rest of the volume, I was okay, because I was pissed. I was legitimately mad, particularly at the way he goes. It's just because we've talked about Lono being kind of a mad dog, and Jack is kind of just this force of nature kind of thing, but Remy is clearly the most just least thought into what he's doing. like in terms of these guys that we've seen so far. And for him to be the one, I was super frustrated with that. And it was just like, okay. But as I read more of it, I was like, okay, I think I see why Wiley has to go. Because the conversation he's having with Cole is important. And he doesn't get to actually have it. Like, he's just starting to tell him what he needs to tell him when it happens. And I think that's where we're at. So the end result is we got two different groups that kind of wrap this up. Is Victor takes Branch and Dizzy back to Graves and Cole and Remy, but leaves Benito for Lono to find. And so we get a couple of scenes that are very interesting, which is when we get to the Victor, Cole, and Remy scene where Victor is basically like, if Wiley was drawn, you'd be dead, and so would Cole. And basically, and he is not happy and like stomps away from Remy. What did you think of that follow-up in terms of Victor and Remy and Cole? John.
I mean, I love how aware, Victor is of what should have happened in a showdown between Remy and Wiley. It would not normally end this way, right? And it kind of goes to your point earlier. I do think he was wrapped up in this vain hope that he could convince Cole to join his side and flip the table on Graves. And he was so wrapped up in it, he couldn't see how he was dancing on the mousetrap. It was like, this was not going to go well for him. And it's nice to see who cares about him in this moment, right? Because we see a moment with Cole at some point in the next volume where he's dealing with the grief. We see Victor here, and I don't know if you could call it grief as much as it is regret and frustration with kind of what went down, and then of course, Remy, this cocky Remy who just doesn't have any respect for anything.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Adam? What do you think of this scene?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I meant you. How to word? So I meant. Good grief! Just having a brain fart.
We can come back or whatever.
Let's go ahead and come back. That's
okay. So the other half of this is we get Dizzy and Graves, and Dizzy is ready to kill him because he made her kill Shepard, and somehow we don't get to see it. Instead, she comes out with him, and he's like, Isabella Cordova, and she's now.
I love this cover. It captures it perfectly, right? She's got her suit now.
Yeah. And
she's a Minuteman.
Yeah, she's a Minuteman. He convinces her to join his side. What did you think about that twist? Because she was like, the whole book to that point was she was like, now I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. So what do you think?
I think she sort of, it finally dawned on her, him talking about the rules of the game and her realizing that, that may, if she does want to get rid of him, that may be the way of doing it, is to join them and follow the rules.
Yeah. What about you, John? What do you think of this?
I mean, I loved it. It was kind of like something we've been building towards. I feel like ever since she got the briefcase in the first volume, she was destined to play this bigger part. And every time we've gotten a little more of her story, it's been evident that she's in this deeper than we may have known all along. And to see her finally like take ownership for that, and then threaten Graves and say, "I'm going to kill you," and he's like. What is it Graves says? He says, she says, "I promise I'll kill you." And he says, "If I'm wrong, then you're right. You will, because I've made sure you would do just that." Shepard certainly understood this. Wiley perhaps came to realize it. And you may have thought it was your life they were trying to protect, but it wasn't. It was mine. So he's basically now saying this new situation puts me square in the center of the bullseye.
Right.
And you might be the one taking the shot because those guys were trying to protect me. But maybe now I'm finally a target in this whole thing. Because he seemed bulletproof all the way along up to now. Even Shepard did until obviously he wasn't.
Until he wasn't. Okay, so we get, I mean, the other thing we get here, which is basically Lono trying to recruit Benito. Basically, hey, everybody else is going to like probably die, so you and I could be like in charge of all this whole thing. Is the one little scene we get here, which Lono does by taking him to a peep show. I don't know. Like Lono.
You gotta have sex. You gotta have sex, right?
Lono's so weird. But our next arc is basically we get Remy's brother is going to get the painting and Shepard's backstory. Here we're getting is interspersed with Shepard's backstory. So our Echo is back, manipulating every man that she runs into. And we get back to this painting, which still we still don't understand the importance of this painting, other than it's the same name as like the word.
I mean, that's the like surface layer of the painting. Yeah. It clearly is the code word that nobody really knew. Only a few people knew how to wake Minutemen up, and it was buried on this painting. So in that way, it's a tool in some ways, but obviously that tool is not really needed now that all of them have basically been woken. So it's interesting to see them all, fighting. And it's Ronnie, right? Ronnie's the brother. Ronnie, yes. Remy's brother is Ronnie. Is that what? Yes. Yeah. I loved that. I was excited to see him come back. I was like, oh, okay. So he's not just like a one and done. Oh, the brother's the important one. Because I liked Ronnie better than Remy, and now I really don't like Remy. So I'm like, sweet, let's get Ronnie back in this thing.
So what did you think of this whole arc? Ronnie in Italy trying to get this painting, and we see Echo is back being Echo, everything we've seen her do, which is using her body to manipulate men, and basically has sold this thing like 12 times at this point, and just keeps taking it back. What about you, Dave Maris? What do you think of Ronnie's little Italian adventure?
Somewhat reminded me of like a Keystone Cop routine almost. Just they're chasing around. They're this person's supposed to have it, and that person's supposed to have it, and and then then they were shot, and they weren't, and they.
Yeah, making deals with different like groups and criminals and all these people. There's all these buyers. It may like a heist. It's basically a heist movie. It's going on here, like a Fish Called Wanda or something, where it's like a ridiculous heist and everyone's like playing everyone against each other to get the ultimate prize. And but I thought it was well done. I still like at some point I need to understand how she fits and how she fits in all this. Is she just an other player that just stumbled into this game, or what is really going on here? And with the painting, but I thought it was this late in the book, it worked well enough for a side trip that I didn't think a side trip would really work well. Like I was getting to the point, like just stay on the main story, but like it worked well enough for me as a side trip. Anything else on that whole arc before we do the end of that? We should say is Ronnie comes back and we find Cole waiting on him. The Cole is dealing with his grief, and this is kind of the end. This jumps all the way to the end of the volume. We'll skip that. We'll deal with that at the end here. Sorry. The other side of this is we're getting Shepard's backstory, and basically is a kid fresh back from Vietnam, and basically how he comes on Graves' radar is that Graves is convinced he murdered somebody, but can't prove it. That like he and We see Luke's dad was like, basically, we see that he was never really a Minuteman because he wasn't. Like, he was training and recruiting all these people, but wasn't ever like
Because he was
accepted.
because he was black.
Yeah, he wasn't accepted to be a member of the Minutemen because he was black. And like, we see his frustration and that he kind of leaves the whole thing because he's basically like, oh, good enough to recruit this kid and bring him in, but not good enough to be a member and train this kid. But so what did you think of the introduction of a young Shepard, Adam?
His backstory was a little bit different than I expected. I didn't expect him to. I mean, it works. The fact that ex-military and killed somebody and they can't prove it. And the people that are trying, who it is can't prove it. So that he did a really good job then. So that just speaks to the volumes to the type of work that he can do.
Yeah, I mean, we see how he impressed Graves. It's basically like, okay, you're smart enough that I can't figure out how you did it. And we see even at the end of it, like when he's talking to Dizzy, and he's like, still don't know. I still don't know how I got away with it. Like, and Dizzy makes a comment on the fact that, well, like, you didn't know that as much about him as you think. He didn't actually like jazz. Like, that was a put on. Like, that there were, these things that Shepard had a facade that even Graves never got past. And so I thought it was a super interesting. John, do you have anything to add to the Shepard backstory here?
No, I mean, I think it was, you could argue that it wasn't necessary, but I felt like it was vital because it gives you so much background on these two gentlemen who have been running this game from issue 1, right? Shepard and Graves are being this dynamic duo, and I think seeing the birth of that relationship and seeing the respect that they clearly had for one another, and obviously this is all building towards the spreading of his ashes on the same basketball court. I think it's about respect, right? The respect that they shared in the work that they've been doing for so long. So I thought it was great. I thought it was really valuable, and again, it gives Dizzy a moment to shine because Shepard cared a ton for her, and Graves is just starting to get to know her. So to have her sort of be the middle Minuteman in this relationship is kind of interesting.
Okay, the other thing that we're getting in this volume is we get a bunch of cuts to members of the Trust getting wiped out.
Well, yeah. Are you done with volume 11?
Yeah, I think
I was
so.
going to show some covers that I love.
Okay, yeah, sure. Show some covers.
I mean, Johnson, what's his name? What Johnson? It's is it Nate? Something Johnson.
Dave?
Sure. Really just such a splendid, fantastic artist. Really just so talented. I showed this one at the beginning, which for me is perfect for the death
Dave
of
Johnson.
Wiley. And
Dave
then
Johnson.
we mentioned the vacation to Rome. This is an homage to Roman Holiday, the Cary Grant film, or not Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn and oh goodness, I forgot the gentleman from Mockingbird, Gregory Peck. Yeah, and so if you look at the poster for the Roman Holiday, they're on the Vespa in Rome with the back. It's just a romantic comedy. So I just love that they did a little homage to that in there. So yeah, just some fun covers. I do think that the cover art in 100 Bullets is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, the cover art is always spectacular for sure. So yeah, we get intermixed with this. We get to see a couple of the families, other Trust families, get taken out. I don't know that they're super important other than the fact that they're just getting wiped out as we're getting fewer and fewer families left. We see one where Cole and Remy come for a guy. We see another one where Cole and Victor and Remy come for a guy. We see another one where we see another one where Victor is basically taken out these people, and then helps with a kid, and they're like that they kidnapped the kid, and there was some other stuff, and basically we see that he doesn't particularly appreciate some of the things that Graves does.
Right.
Anything in either of those two that you want to like comment on? Because that one was the one in Colorado was weird, like that they stole this kid and like and then like exactly what Victor was trying to accomplish, I wasn't completely sure of, but.
And I every time I read it, I feel like I'm missing something there, and it may just be so subtle I'm not picking up on it. We never see what was in Victor's briefcase and what he did with it up to now, at least, right? We haven't seen it, and he seems to curse Graves for his briefcase, his attaché case at the end here, and I don't know if this story has something to do with him not using the gun and not doing what he could have done with it. And now it caused these other, traumas. And so he feels like he's got to go clean up the mess. And that's what's happening here. I can't gauge it, but it does feel like we're getting a far more emotional Victor in this, because he's going out of his way to right a wrong that seems to have nothing to do with the overall story here. He sees an injustice. Some children are horribly murdered, and some awful people are getting away with it, and he pays good money to find out where they're hiding out, shows up and just puts an axe in this guy's head and drowns this woman in a toilet. Like he goes John Wick on these people, and you don't necessarily know why. You don't even know what he does with the only survivor of this incident, this little blonde boy. He steps into the hallway and that's it. You don't know. So there's a lot of interesting like character stuff here for Victor that is, at least as of now, very unexplained. And I both like it and I need a lot of answers.
Because I mean, you see that like, because he's talking to Graves, and Graves like, good job today, Victor, very clean. And he's talking about the two socialite ladies that he killed at the thing, that he's then talking, that he's discussing when he's discussing with the guy at the bar to get the information on the people he goes and kills in the evening. So Graves is very like, obviously what he just did, what we see at the end, the people he took out, like you said, John Wick style sort of, Graves is not happy about, but Victor, that's where Victor's like, take your attaché and shove it up your, what, So clearly there was a side thing to what he was already doing, which was taking out members of the trust.
Right.
But we see, the next thing we get after that is we get a member of the trust, a woman that I don't know that we've actually met her yet. I think she's been in the background a couple of times, meeting with a Mr. Slaughter, who appears to be a former Minuteman who's like retired, and she's basically hired him to kill somebody, and he assumes she means Graves, but it's not. Basically, we see that it's not, and we see he's retired because he has a family. He's, but he's still doing jobs. So we get a setup here that we don't know where this is going just yet. What did you think of the introduction to Mr. Slaughter, Adam?
It's very interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting to see, people from the past, being brought in like him to, show a little bit of past Minutemen that, that it's not just death and destruction to get out.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing to me. Is like, this is a Minuteman who retired. Like, who knew they could even do that? John, what do you think about Mr. Slaughter?
I mean, this part of the story, what I'm noticing more on this read through is like, it feels like Azzarello and Rizzo are less interested in like spelling things out for us. You got to read between the lines and kind of gain understanding. So at one point she says, you retired, and he's like, well, I raised my replacement, which implies that there's a Minuteman that he is basically the father of, that he's basically like,
or trained at least.
Yes, exactly. So now we're left going, okay, how is he connected to which Minuteman? Which Minuteman are we talking about? Right. And then to your point, who did she hire him to take care of? Like, how does his assignment fit into what's going on? Because everybody is getting very well. A couple people maybe not, but most everybody seems to be getting very scared that this is going to end bloody for them, right? Nobody except maybe Augustus or whatever is kind of like,
well, he's going to marry the hot little blonde to consolidate that house. Is what he thinks
he's banging Megan, so nothing's wrong in his world, right?
Yeah.
So that, that sense of anxiety that's going around is why he gets activated. It's why, Victor is feeling on edge. It's why Lono is trying to recruit Benito. Everybody's feeling like the end game is here and they've got to like put pieces in order,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought it was an interesting introduction this late. It'll be curious to see because even when you see her face, like he's like, but if you want me to kill Graves, it'll cost you. And she's like, Graves? No. But the look on her face when she says, but there is someone else, like, is very, something's very serious here. So we jump to the last issue here. And basically we see I'm trying to get to the last issue is we jump back to Atlantic City, and they're on the boardwalk. Cole and Branch is stuck with Cole again. He leaves him on the bench to go visit Remy's brother. What did you think of Cole processing his grief over Wiley here, basically? Like, he's basically looking for some revenge. And we don't necessarily see what he does, but I do love that. What did you think of the interaction between Ronnie and Cole? John?
I mean, I like it a lot. I like the setup at the bar where we know that they're connected, but Ronnie's got no clue. Ronnie's like, he's got the stuffing beat out of him. He's just trying to drink away his sorrows and wait for Agent Graves. He doesn't recognize that this is a Minuteman sitting next to him, basically yakking his ear off. And then, of course, when they get up into the hotel room and the color tone shifts to basically black and white.
Yeah.
Right. They're up in that room and it's you can see Cole is like, I got a job to do. And that comes first. Once I have this painting, I got my own thing, my own score that I need to settle, because he goes out of his way not to say like, I didn't like him, but I respected him a ton, and your brother killed him. And I don't really love your brother. So I don't feel any respect for him as much. So I feel fine in having you pay the bill for your brother. It's basically Cole's logic. Yeah.
But I love, like, Ronnie's response is, my brother's a dick. And he's like, are you just saying that because you know what I'm about to do? And he's like, no, I'm saying that because I know my brother better than you do. Like, what do you think of this scene, Adam? What do you think of Cole?
That's what I actually had, on that same scene. Yeah, that was a great part. And it made you, think that, even though, like Ronnie was doing that, he wasn't fully invested. He played the part, but he wasn't, doing it, all for his brother and love of him. He knew that his brother had some, major flaws and was a dick.
Yeah. So, and I love that they leave, and again, Azzarello leaves it arbitrary. Does Cole do it or does he not? Does Ronnie talk him out of it, and Cole decide that, you know what, this is not the way to make Remy pay the price? Or, because how much is Remy really even going to care? And which I think he will. We saw enough before, but that he would, but it's still like, is this how Cole wants to handle it? So we don't get to know this at the end of our volume. But the other thing that happens is he left Branch on the boardwalk on a bench, the bench where they'd killed a member of the trust earlier, and Echo is back. Because she, again, who the hell is this woman and how is she connected? Because I feel like she's somebody more than what we realize to this point, connected in some way to all of this. But yeah, she's she comes up and like, because he's like, you're not a prostitute anymore. And she's like, I am what the situation requires of me. And they laugh. But when Cole returns, Branch is dead. So what did you think of the Echo back again? Who is this woman, John? Like,
I'm not telling you anything. But we do get, another somewhat significant character death, right? Another person who wasn't fit for this game from the beginning and got played. I think he's been played by Echo 3 times now. Is it the third time's the charm?
At least the third time, yes.
It's hard not to like Branch just because he is one layer deep. The guy is one layer deep.
Yeah.
But he's way over his head in this whole thing. And I just love that he's survived like a cockroach up to now.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? What do you think of Branch's demise here?
Yeah. Echo has got to be somebody else than just what she was leading everyone to believe and what we were led to believe so far, up to this point. The stuff in Italy and chasing everybody around, you can kind of see where she might, have had enough stuff to do that. But to show up at this time and take out Branch, we assume she took him out. I don't know who else it would have been.
Or had somebody do it.
Or had somebody, But I mean, to show up at that exact time, do that exact thing, she's got to have more backstory, be more involved than what we know of at this time.
Yeah, she's clearly more than what we have seen. As she says, she's like, I'm whatever the situation requires me to be. Like, she's clearly had training. She's clearly more than just, well, at first we thought she was a prostitute, then she was a thief, and then she was an art dealer, and then she's been all these different things. She's clearly, if not a Minuteman, like in some way, shape, or form, like basically had similar kinds of training. And just because I'm trying to think if any of the Minutemen have actually seen her.
Milo, and it didn't go well for him. Lono.
Milo did see, that is true.
Milo and Lono both
banged.
I think she banged both of them in the Counter Fifth detective story.
Yeah. This is true. Okay. So she has been seen. Okay. So I was just But was that before or after Milo got his memories back? I can't remember.
I mean, his whole story, he gets his memory back at the very end. He's already banged her.
Yeah.
I don't believe he sees her after he got his memory back. I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't think he does.
Lono doesn't recognize her because Lono, passes her around. He's not aware of her.
So,
but Lono's not aware of a lot of
people. Lono's not. Yeah. Lono is a bull in a china shop. He's not necessarily. Yeah, he's an interesting choice. So that brings us to the end of this volume. That's where we leave off here.
There's one scene I want to talk about that it's kind of small and kind of short, and I get not getting too into it. Remy's on a job and he can't quite get it done, and he sits down at a restaurant with Dizzy and Greg.
Yes.
It's basically like 4 pages. And
it's the lady that he fails to kill the lady we see hire Mr. Slaughter. Like she's taking steps.
Yes. And he starts eating off of Dizzy's plate and then licking his fingers and eating more off of her plate. And I love seeing Graves.
Oh, he froze.
Because the relationship between Graves and his. Oh, did I freeze again?
Yeah, just for a second. When you started saying.
Am I frozen?
You're jumping in and out. Go ahead. You're back, I think.
Okay. The relationship between Graves and his Minuteman is kind of fascinating to me, and the way that they interact and the way that he is sometimes the boss, the way he's sometimes just trying to like point them in the right direction and knock them over like a domino. In this case, Remy is starting to get on Graves's nerves. Graves grabs him by the wrist and says, "No more whiny BS. Guys like you," and then Remy's like, "Your guys?" And he's like, "Guys like you get off in the details. That's a problem. I need you to step back, take a look at the big picture, get off that, and get the job done." Like it's a wonderful like spanking moment. Yeah. And for those of us getting frustrated with Remy, I dug it. I like the scene.
It is a cool moment, and it's basically if anything, it's Graves taking his frustration out about the Wiley thing.
For sure. 100%.
Because he's like, I can have Wiley doing this, instead I have you.
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
you know, and he's not super happy there. Adam, you have anything to add to that? And it did remind me there's another scene I want to get to real quick before we wrap this up. But anything on that one, Adam?
Not on that one, no.
Okay. So the scene I want to talk to is there is a little inlet
Lono.
in here where Lono goes to the gym.
Which, by the way, has one of my all-time favorite covers in this entire run. I don't know if it's supposed to just be the woman that we get at the gym, or if this is also supposed to kind of look like Megan with the X.
Well, it's got the X.
But the X is the wrong boob. I don't know. I just love it. I just think it's freaking gorgeous cover. But yeah, let's get into Lono's near-death experience.
So yeah, we see basically we're at this gym and we see this woman and they look enough alike that it's hard to tell some of the characters, like who's who if they're not like a main character. But this woman teaching a self-defense class at this gym, and she's getting ready to leave, and in walks Lono, Loop, and Jack. And we see basically they're there because they're training Loop. That's basically what's going on. And Lono decides he's going to hit the sauna, and she basically tricks him into. He doesn't even recognize her. She tricks him into like drinking. She basically drugs a drink, tricks him into taking it, and then that's going to make him sleepy, and then basically tries to poison him in the sauna, and it's going to work. Lono is toast before she, in the end, lets him out, which is probably a big mistake. But we'll see what happens to her. But it's probably a really big mistake. But what did you think of this scene? Because this is somebody, Lono almost dies because of someone that he didn't think twice about, which is basically everything that the way he operates in general. Which is why he's not, in my opinion, was never the appropriate replacement for Shepard. Because Shepard thought about everything that was going on, and Lono, people are just beneath Lono. What did you think of this scene, Adam? I'll let Adam go first this time.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good one. And, it was, I think, a big mistake on her part, but, she was using that as a point of why she was better than him. Yeah. And, that she was that she wasn't a monster like he was. And she was using that to help her get over the trauma.
Yeah, she was using it to help herself. Like she was, what about you, John? What did you think of this scene here?
I mean, there's a lot of collateral damage going on in these books, and she's clearly an example of someone that could have easily been dismissed as just one random person who had to spend one awful night with Lono, and is now it's shaped the rest of her existence, right? That's why she was in this club or this gym with this self-defense class. She says that he assaulted her, and that's what's driving her to get this revenge on him. And yeah, the payback is real, and it could have gone all the way to the end. So I like that there are repercussions for characters, that nobody is safe. Nobody's above reciprocity in some fashion in this series.
For sure. Okay. So, final thoughts. We got one volume left. Adam, what do you think? Where are you at on this? With one volume to go, where are you at on this?
It's got a lot of work to go to, wrap up, and 12 issues or so that we've got left. I'm excited to finish it up and see where it ends. I think it's going to end with like everyone dead.
Yeah.
Both sides. I mean, all sides. I was going to say both sides, but there's definitely more than just two sides. I think it's going to end up with basically a whole reset.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on this and I'll be curious to see if they can. I'm pretty sure it's headed toward everybody's going to be dead. Like, I think I figured out for a long time, for a while, I thought Augustus and Grace were playing the same game. I don't think they are. I think Augustus thinks they are, but I don't think they are. And I think the end game is nobody makes it out. I'm curious to see if Azzarello can write it in a way that's satisfying, or just sad. I mean, is it going to be satisfying or is it just going to be sad? And I'm curious to see how we get there. I could be wrong. It might not be that way, but that's just where I feel like it's headed. John, your thoughts on these two volumes as we head into the finale?
Yeah, we've got 1 year left of the book, right? 1 12-issue season, if you will. And there's a lot of pieces on the board. It's a great question. Is it a satisfying end? Will it be a satisfying end? And, everybody's going to have their thoughts on that. Not a ton of comic books have like the perfect ending, right? Yeah. So will it satisfy what you wanted to get out of it? Whether that's answers, whether that's thematics or catharsis or, whatever, a character arc or, those kinds of things. I will say this is probably the 4th time I've read through this series, and things seem a little tighter than I had thought they were in the past. But I've probably read volume 13 the least, so I'm kind of like excited because there's only certain things I remember from those 12 issues, so I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to share one last cover that I really loved. This is the Victor Ray issue, and just him in the shadows and the light and the bloody axe, and it's just like I really enjoyed this little issue more than I remembered enjoying. So it stood out in a way that I felt like there was something there that maybe I'm still not picking up on completely.
Yeah, I think with Wiley gone, Victor is the most interesting of the Minutemen left in terms of what is actually motivating him and to do what he's doing and where his loyalties are going to lie. So I'm very curious to see how it all plays out. But yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the heck out of it. Looking forward to the finale. Unless you guys got any final thoughts, we'll get out of here. We're right at an hour, so we can wrap this up. I want to thank Perry for stopping by. I have Comic Issues for stopping by. Christina for being that amazing moderator, as always. Tacoma was in here for a little bit. Big O stopped by, so appreciate all you guys hanging out with us. And yeah, we will. If I can find the outro, we will. Oh, wait, before I go, I almost forgot. Got to shout out my members. Got to shout them out. Thank you so much to the folks that are helping me with the channel, help me keep this going, covering my StreamYard costs. I appreciate it. There will be a member giveaway at the end of the month, and I do know what I'm doing, but I don't have it to show just yet. So, but yeah, end of the month, there will be a giveaway. And with that, now we will hit the outro and get out of here later.